On this edition, I'm going to break down and predict the upcoming fight on the UFC 157 card between Lyoto Machida and Dan Henderson. Now, Machida's coming off of a win off of Ryan Bader, probably one of his more impressive performances. It was really flawless, is the best way to put it. Just never in any sort of danger. Made Ryan Bader look like he's never fought or struck a day in his life, and then just beat him in highlight reel fashion. Just an incredible strike, putting him down, and being the first guy to actually knock out Ryan Bader, which is beyond impressive. Machida's skill set, obviously a black belt in karate, black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, just his striking is some of the most polished, and you want to talk about technical strike. I know it's a term that's thrown out so much when you talk mixed martial arts, but Machida's one of the most technical strikers, and technique is really everything with him, given the fact of his karate background. Now, he's more of a counter striker. Machida has incredible footwork, good speed, very elusive, good head movement. I mean, he's a very hard guy to hit. And it's not so much he's always the aggressor. He can seek you down, but he's not going to throw a bunch of punches at you. It's more the quality over quantity thing with Machida, is that he wants you to make a mistake. When you make a mistake, he's going to capitalize on it. He's one of the more accurate strikers in the UFC and mixed martial arts, and he also has really good power in his hands as well. Hands, legs, and he's a dynamic striker. The karate background utilizes his leg kicks, kick the leg, kick the head, elbows, knees, and obviously hands. He's got really good straight strikes, not so much looping strikes for Machida. Machida capitalizes on opponents' mistakes, and he's one of the best at doing so. Also in regards to it, he's got a good clinch game. He's got good movement in the octagon. He's a very smart fighter. He doesn't like to be near the cage, likes to utilize his movement and stay out of danger. And also his ground game is very underrated. He does have good tosses. I don't want to say so much takedowns, but Machida can toss people in the clinch, throw them down to the ground, and he has a good ground and pound game. And also, given the fact we don't see much of it, but Machida actually does have a very good Brazilian jiu-jitsu game, given that he's a black belt. But Machida really fancies himself a striker. That's the better part of his game. But he also is good off of his back. He's good in the dominant position with his ground and pound. And he's good at getting up off of his back as well. He's very slippery, very elusive, very squirmy fighter. So a couple things about Machida in this fight. Machida most definitely has the reach advantage in this fight. He's definitely the faster fighter. And, I can't say he has more knockout power than Dan Henderson, but I'd say that he's been in the octagon more than obviously Henderson has. Henderson hasn't fought since Shogun Rua. It's been about 15 months. I'd say that Machida's the more dynamic striker. I'd say that he's most definitely the more polished and refined striker than Dan Henderson is, and he also has better cardio than Dan Henderson. So where I see Lyoto Machida being successful in this fight is that I think there's no mystery to this. I mean, it's very hard to knock out Dan Henderson, but it's most definitely possible. There's going to be someone who can test Henderson's chin. I think if Machida utilizes his movement effectively and really frustrates Henderson and stays out of danger, avoids the cage, and he can connect with his strikes and pick apart Henderson, I think he can most definitely, I don't want to say finish Henderson, but I think if this one goes to decision, he stays fresh and he can tire out Henderson, he can most definitely win this fight by decision. If not, if he actually can wear down Henderson and get him down to the ground, he can also win this fight by submission. I know Henderson's a good wrestler, but he has been susceptible to submissions in the past. But I think the most important thing in this fight is that Machida's got to be careful, and that's the one thing I did want to add, is that Machida does have a quote-unquote questionable chin. He does tend to get rocked. He hasn't been finished a lot, but we've seen him take the strikes. He does get wobbled. So, I think if Dan Henderson does connect, he can most definitely knock out Lyoto Machida. So, I'd say that Machida successfully could win this fight by decision or submission. So, that's why I have for Lyoto Machida. So, Dan Henderson. Now, Dan Henderson hasn't been in the octagon since Shogun Rua. I believe it's 15 months. Maybe come time to fight, but he's been out quite a long time. He was supposed to face Jon Jones for a shot at the light heavyweight title at UFC 151. We all know what happened with that. Major disappointment. But Henderson's skill set's always been so simple. He does have a good wrestling background. He's an Olympic-level wrestler. Does have a Greco-Roman background as well. But, Henderson also fancies himself a striker as well. Is the fact that Henderson possesses some of the best knockout power in mixed martial arts and one of the best chins. They complement each other so well. As that Henderson is aggressive, he gets in your face, and he loads up with the right hand, and he nails that overhand right. And the thing is, people say, he's not fast enough, he's not explosive, and sure, Henderson's getting up there in age, most definitely. But somehow, some way, he tends to land that hand. He always finds a way to land that hand. I'm not talking about the knockout strike, but he always finds a way to land his strikes. And people always know what's coming, like, oh, I'm not going to get hit by the right hand. But Henderson lands it. He just finds a way. Such an experienced fighter. I won't say he's a smart stand-up fighter or a technical stand-up striker, but he somehow finds a way to land that right hand. Henderson's never been knocked out before. I mean, that's probably the biggest advantage going into this fight, is that, Machida's got good power, but Henderson has continued to show time and time again that it's very hard to finish him and put him away. So, unbelievable chin in Dan Henderson. That's what allows him to be aggressive and be almost reckless and fight with abandonment almost. And that's what almost intimidates fighters. So, Henderson also, he's good in the clinch. He likes to utilize the cage, wear down his opponents and press them up and work their knees, work the body a little bit. And then he loves to separate and land the power strikes and utilize elbows. And he does have a good takedown game. Once again, not so much explosive, but good technique with his wrestling. He can take you down the ground. He can utilize ground and pound. Henderson does have submissions. Will he submit Lyoto Machida? I don't think so. A couple factors about Henderson is the fact that he is at a reach disadvantage. He is the older fighter, but I also think that experience is a big factor in this fight, is that he's faced top-tier opponents. Obviously, Machida's fought some good fighters, but, it does not add to the list that Henderson has fought. Henderson's also, he's got the knockout power, he's got the confidence, but I think the other factor is that he hasn't been in the octagon a long time, and he tends to gas in later rounds. So, will his gas tank, will he be able to keep up with Lyoto Machida? And once again, I always say speed. He does not have the speed that Machida has, but who knows? Maybe his experience will come into play. So where I see Dan Henderson being successful in this fight is that no mystery. You can either keep it standing or try and get it down, utilize your ground pound, but he's got to get his hands on Lyoto Machida. His movement in the octagon has got to be ideal. He's got to corner Machida. I just don't see him being able to connect with Machida in the center of the octagon. Got to let the hands fly. Henderson always does that, so I'm not concerned about that. But he's got to get his hands on Machida. He's got to finish this fight via TKO or knockout. That's the only way. If it goes to decision, I could see Machida working his way around the octagon, picking apart Henderson in what we would call a boring and quote-unquote lackluster fight. So Henderson's got to knock out or TKO Lyoto Machida. So where my prediction lies in this fight, and Machida's most definitely the favorite. He's been in the octagon longer. Just more recently. And I can see why he's the favorite. He's got more weapons than Dan Henderson. Henderson's been out for a long time. But I have to go with the underdog in this one. I could see somehow, some way in this fight that Dan Henderson will connect with Lyoto Machida. Obviously, Ryan Bader may be faster than Dan Henderson, but Dan Henderson's been there. He's done that. He's been in dogfights before. He's found a way, somehow, some way, to finish fighters. So I think in some point in this fight, I think it has to be early on, he's going to connect with Lyoto Machida's chin, and he's going to defeat him via TKO or knockout. So I'm going to take Dan Henderson defeating Lyoto Machida on the UFC 157 card via TKO or knockout. And that's what I have for this edition. It's Kyle Delaney signing off. I'm out of here.